Welcome in, everyone. I believe at this point we're practically family now that we're 5 episodes deep into this, and you've enjoyed our first 4 episodes of our presentation here weekly on the Pro Football History Channel. Izzy, how you doing tonight?
Mark, I'm doing super great. Best day ever.
Best day ever. I'm not usually one to take up on these cliched kind of terms, so I'll just say I'm glad to be here. All right. So we will go into our second part of our NFL draft episode. Of course, if you have yet to take part in the first episode, check out that video. We had a good time looking at Izzy selections of the best positional player at each position based on that particular round. I don't even remember what we did last week. Something to that effect.
You have no idea. You didn't know it. You didn't know when we were doing it. I had to explain it like 8 times. Okay, go watch the film, people, and tell me I'm wrong. It's very easy, okay? We made an all first-round draft pick team.
Oh, it was just the first round. That's right. That's what got me confused in recollecting it. Yes.
It's like that's an easy way to put it. An all first-round team.
That's what it was. What we are going to do in this video is we are going to run down Izzy's top selections for the best picks per round, the best second rounders of all time, the best third rounders of all time, and his choice as number one in each round. So we've already done the first round. Again, that's in our last video. So now we're going to look to the second round, and these are the greatest players who were ever selected in the second round of the NFL draft.
Right. And so unlike last week where we created a whole team positionally, like you said, Mark, we're just going to pick. We got one pick in the second round. We got one pick in the third round. We got just like an NFL draft here. And oh, by the way, wasn't that a beautiful NFL draft? Wasn't that fun?
It was sad. A fun draft.
It's like the saddest moment when they sign off. Yeah, when they sign off, it's just, I got another year to wait. Another year. It's like Christmas, When's it going to come? Maybe we can have Christmas in like July when, do the draft all over again.
I enjoyed it.
In the spirit of that draft, which just ended, we're going to first take our second round draft pick. All right. Now, kind of like they have the Mel Kiper's best available, when each team is picking, they'll list those guys, right? Here are the best available to us. These are players who, through the history of the NFL, were drafted in the second round. We have Drew Brees, Rob Gronkowski, Mike Singletary, Jack Lambert, Jack Ham, Ted Hendricks, Fred Biletnikoff, Jim Taylor, Greg Forrest, Curly Culp, Dave Casper, Howie Long, and John Mackey. But the one name that I didn't give is my pick of the best second rounder ever chosen in the NFL draft. Brett Favre of the Green Bay Packers. Fire away, big guy.
So the most recent selection you have here are actually 2 players to a certain extent. One still currently active with Tampa Bay, and that's Gronk. And then you also have Drew Brees, who just recently retired. So you do have 2 current players who are all-time greats at their position, no question. And then we've got quite a bit of a gap going back to the early 80s. Yes. Maybe the early 90s with Howie Long. Okay. So we don't have anyone from the mid 90s up until the present time drafted in the second round that met your cut, apparently.
It's too early to tell. This is pro football history. So
Drew Brees
I don't want to give too much of a nod to
Dalvin Cook.
It was a tough choice between Drew Brees and Brett Favre. One guy played for my alma mater. One guy played for my favorite NFL team. So it was a toss-up, okay? But the reason I chose Brett Favre is, he could do things that Drew Brees could not do, okay? That dude could rifle that ball through an opening that narrow and break your fingers when you caught it. All right. He took a franchise that was, once storied, which was in anywhere from mediocre to horribleness, and put him on his back and carried him to greatness again. He was an Iron Man. I mean, he still holds the consecutive games started streak, which you would think would be like by a punter or by a, I don't know, safety or something. But it is a quarterback, and you saw his play. He took a pounding every week, and he just got right up off the ground and laughed in your face and said, "That's all you got." So for my money, if I'm picking in the second round and I got that list right in front of me, I'm taking Brett Favre.
Yeah, okay. Well, their accomplishments are similar. They both won a Super Bowl. Brett Favre played in another Super Bowl that Drew Brees did not. I'm guessing their winning percentage all time as a quarterback, if you believe in that statistic, is similar. If anything, I would put my money on Brett Favre's being better, but I believe they're similar because Brett Favre really didn't play for any bad teams. Drew Brees, between the Super Bowl and the Saints' resurgence here in the last 5 years, they had some down seasons. Drew Brees statistically is a more efficient player. He didn't throw all those picks, and he is the best completion percentage, I believe, in the history of the game. I'm going Brees.
Oh, you're boring me. You're boring.
And then Favre.
One thing two guys have in common is, coincidentally, both their original teams gave up on them. And I'm sure lived to rue the day they did. So you're not giving any credence to anybody downstream. Mike Singletary, Fred Biletnikoff. We can get an offensive lineman there. Forrest Gregg, throw him in there.
If I did, it would be to Jack Lambert, four-time Super Bowl winner, as was Jack Ham, but I think Lambert was a little bit more dynamic of a player than Ham, and that's a very easy comparison to make because they played right next to each other. Or I would go with Gronk, who's arguably regardless of what you think of the guy, arguably the best at his position in history.
Yeah. No, I mean, and if we revisit this topic in 10 years, it may be a different guy chosen. So, all right. Well, we'll just have to agree to disagree on that. I could take either one of those. Moving on to the third round, I don't think we're going to have much disagreement, unfortunately. If we look at all of the great players in the NFL who were drafted in the third round in their day, the list includes, I'll just throw a current guy in there just to give a little discussion. Travis Kelce. Kelce? I don't watch AFC football. I'm just kidding.
That's the man's name. Sure. Yes, from the University of Cincinnati. Yes.
Russell Wilson, Steve Smith, Terrell Owens, Russ Grimm, Dan Fouts, who I grew up with that Dan Fouts guy, man. Woo. Ken Anderson, I know he's a personal favorite of yours. Mel Blount, Art Shell, Fran Tarkington. Now, he is a personal favorite of yours.
Yes, he is.
Ray Nitschke, Jan Stenerud. I mean, you got to throw a place kicker in there. Elvin Bethea and Jackie Slater. Good list of names, wouldn't you agree?
It's a great list.
Those are Izzy's best available. However, the guy we choose is Joe Montana of the San Francisco 49ers. He of the 4 Super Bowl championships. He of taking the laughing stock of the league and turning them into a dynasty. So you just got to do that. It's not my favorite guy in the world, but it's the guy you got to take.
I would love to be a contrarian here, but it's impossible to be one and be reasonable and legitimate and credible. Just to run down the list and just give my thoughts that come to mind. Jackie Slater played forever at offensive tackle, so he was a bit of a wonder in regards to being able to stand up at that position for that long. Jan Stenerud, I would love to see Jan Stenerud's kicking statistics right now as the first place kicker inducted into the Hall of Fame. Right. I bet they're They're a bit amusing. Ray Nitschke is just, hardcore nuts and bolts. When you talk football, doesn't get any more serious and stern and hard-nosed than Ray Nitschke. Yes, Fran Tarkington was one of my personal favorites. Fran the Scram. At the time that Fran Tarkington retired, he had all the major passing records: touchdowns, yards, attempts, completions. Owned them all.
A very elusive man he was. So I want to piggyback, go back to Jan Stenerud, because that's the interesting discussion here for me, because you bring up a salient point, Mark. I called up Jan Stenerud's career completion, field goal completion percentage, and yes. This is a good point, because we're trying to let the next generation know from where we came. And place kickers didn't just hit 95% of their place kicks from 73 yards from the history of the NFL. Okay, so here we have a guy who is considered by the Hall of Fame to be one of the greatest players of all time, not just one of the greatest place kickers. There's no obligation for the the NFL to put a place kicker in the Hall of Fame, but this guy merited it based upon his credentials compared to the entire league. And for his career, what's a guy today? What's a good percentage today? Ish.
The low 80s, 81, 82.
Well, Jan would have enjoyed that. No, that's not true. He did achieve the 80s and even the 90 one time later in his career, but his career average is 66.8%.
It's not horrible.
That guy would get cut today.
Yeah, he would most likely get cut.
He's in the Hall of Fame.
He would be in the Hall of Fame. Well, he's also a pioneer.
He weathered a 55. No, actually, wait. The next year after that, he weathered a 44% kicking year for Kansas City. So, oh mercy me! It's a different time and a different place. He was one of those soccer style kickers.
Yes, that's why I call him a pioneer.
Brought that in.
Yes,
he's a pioneer. It's another point for the Pro History channel here is that, Mark and I grew up watching guys kick that ball straight ahead. Straight on ahead. Mark Mosley, was he the place kicker for the Redskins?
Yes. He won the MVP one year.
Kick that ball straight on.
I bet if we looked up Mark Mosley's 1982 statistics, he won the MVP of the league. I bet they're not like phenomenal. I think he just won a lot of games with a lot of like 31-yard field goals. Here's my favorite kicking statistic.
I'm going to let you know for this.
Yeah, go ahead.
Yeah. I do want to caveat this, and this will again prelude a show that we'll have down the road, the strike shortened season.
Yes.
82, there were only 9 games played, but still, he hit 95.2%. He hit 20 of 21 field goals that year. So, okay. Don't know if that's my MVP, but in a strike-shortened season,
sure.
Maybe you give the guy the nod there.
Okay.
That's a good trivia question.
He hit a lot of game winners. That was factored into it as well. My favorite kicking statistic before we move on to our 4th round would be, I just looked up Paul Hornung because I knew one particular year was rather atrocious. So Paul Hornung, of course, your beloved Packers, was just not a great all-time halfback. He also was a field goal kicker. His final season in the league.
Right.
Well, no. This is his final year as a kicker, 1964. He played longer than that as a halfback, a couple more years. But anyway. Well, yeah. I have to question Vince Lombardi's wisdom as arguably the greatest coach at that time or of all time. He marched out
because of who he had as a place kicker.
because
forget about the 5
No.
world championships. You know,
Because
throw 'em out there to
he
kick football.
chose for him to kick the most attempts in the league that year. So he determined that he was going to kick it 38 times and make 12. 31%.
Well, that's not very good, is it?
Brilliant,
now see why
Vince.
that was
Nice
his last
job.
year.
Great job, Vince. At what point did you figure out that maybe he's not the guy?
I
To attempt
expect
more
we'll
than
hear this
anybody
again
in
when
the
we
league.
debate who the greatest coach of all time was down the road.
Yeah.
You know, when I try to say it's Vince Lombardi, well, you know, he did have a bad place kicker. So
No, he
right, let's move
chose
on to
to
the fourth
use
round,
that
shall
bad
we?
place kicker more than anybody else. Okay, let's move on to the fourth round.
Okay, so Izzy's best available. These are guys who, when they came into the league, were drafted in the fourth round in their particular year. The first I'm
Yep.
going to mention, I'm only mentioning because of his name. He's a good player, but he really doesn't belong on this list. Elvis Dumervil. That's a shout out to my friend Mark Rogers. Charles Haley, Andre Reed, Steve Largent, John Stallworth, Jerry Kramer, Sonny Jurgensen, Harry Carson, Chris Carter, and Charlie Joyner. So you can see the names are still great names, but you know, a little bit of the luster is off of them
Yes.
now here in the fourth round, right? I mean, you know, a little bit. So the one guy, which I inadvertently read his name, Jerry Kramer, is who Izzy picks as the best fourth round draft pick in NFL history, and a new inductee into the Hall of Fame.
At the conclusion of Charlie Joyner's career, he was the most prolific receiver in history. Not the most decorated or the one that was mostly named on the all-time teams, but he had the most receptions in history. Charlie Joyner did. And then he was supplanted by, ironically enough, for our list here, Steve Largent, who was the all-time receptions leader for a long, long time until Jerry Rice came around. But out of this list, I can respect Jerry Kramer. I would challenge him with Chris Carter.
I kind of thought you'd throw that name out there, and see, I don't know why, but you know, I mean, I can respect that choice as well. We're getting to the fourth round, so you know, I mean, I think that the pool isn't as obvious, I should say. So Steve Largent, maybe, like you had already mentioned, I might have thrown him in there. So that's the best fourth round pick in NFL history right there. Fifth round. All right. Here's Izzy's best available. These are players picked in the fifth round of the NFL draft when they came into the NFL in days gone by. George Kittle. Just throw a name out there just to, banter about. Richard Sherman, another, today name. Hardy Nickerson. Kevin Green. Dick LeBeau, Bob Waterfield, and Pete, some last name, Pihos. So,
is this your list?
This is my list. I just don't know how to pronounce everybody because although I've been watching football, I've only been watching it since like 1972. So, instead, Izzy goes with the best fifth round pick of all time being Mike Webster. Center from the Pittsburgh Steelers dynasty era of the 70s and early 80s. What you got for me, Mark?
I recall at Mike Webster's Hall of Fame induction ceremony that Terry Bradshaw, I will state that I'm not sure whether this was Terry Bradshaw's induction into the Hall of Fame or whether this was Mike Webster's induction into the Hall of Fame, in which Terry Bradshaw was giving the introductory speech, and he asked Mike Webster when he came out to the podium to give the acceptance speech to then crouch down and hike him the football. And I still remember very energetically, as Terry Bradshaw is a charismatic kind of guy, one more time, just one more time. I want to Put my hands under the butt of Mike Webster.
Love that guy. Love me some Terry Bradshaw.
Yeah.
So
I like the
concur?
selection. I think Kevin Green's dominance for a long time. He was just a fierce pass rusher.
May he rest in peace.
Yes.
How about in 10 years? Are we going to be maybe banding about Richard Sherman or George Kittle? Maybe. Who knows?
Yeah, we could. If Richard Sherman continues to.
Dick LeBeau left. Dick LeBeau influenced the game in many ways, beyond his playing days as well. But, just as a pure player, I went with the steel guy.
Yes, he was a tremendous
all right, well, that's the
defensive
fifth round. The sixth round, we could almost skip the sixth round.
Yeah.
But we're going to do it as a matter of our exercise. These are players chosen in the sixth round of the NFL draft. Best available. Getting a little scant now. Matt Burke. I believe he's an offensive lineman with the Minnesota Vikings.
Yes.
So that eliminates him right there. Terrell Davis. Jack Christensen. Good player. But Izzy's going to go off the board here in the sixth round and take Tom Brady, if that's okay with the management.
Well, Terrell Davis was a Super Bowl MVP.
Rodgers. I mean, if you want, I can get Aaron Rodgers' approval on that pick first. So perhaps I need to check with him. But yeah, Tom Brady.
Well, Terrell Davis was a Super Bowl MVP.
He was.
Just pointing that out. He didn't win 5.
Right along. Yeah, he's pointing that out. He's pointing that out as a barb against Izzy.
Yeah.
Because he was an MVP in the Super Bowl that my team was favored by, 14 to win. So, anyway, he played a heck of a game. He had that migraine headache, had to go out, and we thought, Packer Nation was thinking, I love, I don't want the guy to suffer, but hey, if he's not able to come in, hey, it's going to be okay. But he came back in and tore us up. So, bad memories. Anyway, so I think you would concur, sixth round. Did we get that? Did we nail that one? Best sixth round pick of all time?
I've thought it over. You get the thumbs up.
Now, I am going to say that, now that there's so many more teams and so many more players picked, a sixth rounder today, pick 199 is Tom Brady, right? That would have been like a 12th rounder, years ago. So it's kind of apples to oranges a little bit, but he even overcomes that. So, yeah.
The seventh round bounced back a bit here. The sixth round is a pretty disappointing list compared to the you would anticipate as the level of talent and also the depth of the talent has dissipated as we've gone, and this is the one aberration because now it bounces back.
And I think I have a theory on that. The seventh round today is now the last round of the NFL draft, and some of the names that a couple of the names, okay, maybe one of the names is the seventh round, like last round of the draft pick. And maybe teams are willing to take a flyer on athleticism or, a guy who really is a boom or bust player at that point, and, they turn out. But Izzy's best available of guys chosen in the seventh round of the NFL draft include Shannon Sharp, Bo Jackson, Harold Carmichael, wide receiver for the Eagles, Bob Hayes, Bobby Mitchell, Gene Hickerson, Jim Ringo, Joe Schmidt, and Rayfield Wright. Hall of Famers galore there on that list of your. But Izzy's going to go off the board here. And I'm going to pick a guy who I think Mark's going to have some trouble with. But my best seventh round pick of all time is Donald Driver, the wide receiver for the Green Bay Packers. NFL Super Bowl champion.
What's amusing about that selection is that I don't even know if Donald Driver should have made the honorable mention list.
Wow, so that's because you don't know anything about Donald Driver, okay?
No, never seen him play.
Mr. Statistic, how many catches, how many receiving yards ish?
Donald Driver. Give me the years he played, and I'll tell you how many catches he had.
99 was his rookie year.
Okay.
2012 was his retirement year.
Played 14 seasons. He caught 759 passes.
And at this point, I have to just tip my hat to the genius, the savant that I get the joy of working with here. He came very close. 743.
Ooh, I was going to say I was in the 740s and I upped it a little bit, but okay.
For 10,137 yards. That's a really good career.
It is.
For
Absolutely.
a 7th round draft pick. And go-to guy for 2 Hall of Famers. So anyway, I'm gonna stick with my pick. I don't care what you say. What do you think I should have done instead?
I would guess if we took a poll, people would vote for Bo Jackson because there's an iconic element there, component. There's an oddity. There's a unique quality because of the injury that knocked him out for the rest of his career and the baseball aspect. And he's just known as a great athlete, but his NFL career was truncated, of course. So he's not the choice, but he would possibly win that poll. I think that it is a great list. Rayfield Wright's a Hall of Famer. Joe Schmidt's a Hall of Famer. Jim Ringo is. Bob Hayes is. Harold Carmichael, I believe, is. Shannon Sharpe is.
Harold Carmichael at one point had the longest streak of games with a catch.
Did you just eliminate somebody off our list?
Wow. Yeah, I was just trying to see if you're paying attention. But apparently you weren't paying real close attention because I eliminated a guy that I listed twice.
Oh, okay. So I'm going to say, without looking at numbers or anything to get a clear perspective on it, that Shannon Sharpe might be the guy. I didn't think I was going to say that. I thought I was going to go real old school with like Joe Schmidt. Bob Hayes didn't really catch that many passes. He was more of just a deep threat, 20 yards per catch, but he averaged like 22 yards per catch in his career.
You know, that little moment there we just had with Gene Hickerson being eliminated from my list because he was on there twice makes me think, I could really make Mark look bad. I could just put any name on this list. I could put anybody I want and say he was a 7th round pick.
Oh,
and
sure
Mark
you could.
Would say, oh, that's the guy. But I'm a nice guy, so I'm not going to do that. You're safe. Believe me, I make enough mistakes as it is just because I don't know anything. Don't need to do them on purpose. So I'm going to review the first 7 picks of our draft, and then we're not quite done, okay? So the first round we did last week, we did an entire team. The second round, my pick was Brett Favre as the best second-round draft pick of all time. Mark quibbles with me with the Drew Brees suggestion. We both agree in the third round, the best third rounder ever chosen is Joe Montana. Fourth round, we kind of agree Jerry Kramer, the offensive lineman from the Packers dynasty in the 60s. Fifth round, we agreed Mike Webster was the best 5th round pick in history. Tom Brady, we agreed. 6th round. 7th round, we had a little discrepancy, but, I'm going to stick with Donald Driver, and you guys can give me a C+ on my draft grade if you'd like for that. But we're not quite done because, as we've already alluded to, the NFL draft used to be like 36 rounds. I mean, it was humongous. Fewer teams, so it can go through a lot more quality players. So what I want to do here is just highlight a guy, not go through who's available. This isn't is he's best available, just in subsequent rounds that no longer exist. All right. If you will, these would be undrafted free agents today. In the 8th round, the Chicago Bears had a defensive lineman named Richard Dent, won an MVP, a league MVP as a defensive player.
Super Bowl MVP.
Like I said, he won a Super Bowl MVP as a defensive player. In the 9th round, my best 9th rounder of all time is Johnny Unitas. 10th round, I really was reluctant to go this way, but, I hemmed and hawed and picked Roger Staubach as the best 10th round draft pick of all time.
Nice work.
The best 11th round is Tom Fears. 12th round, George Blanda. Now, you talk about a guy who played a while.
Yeah.
13th round, Nick Buoniconti.
Yeah.
In the 14th round, a gem, Deacon Jones. That guy was the face of defensive football back in the day. He was even on the Brady Bunch, after all. My goodness, that's stardom right there.
Yes, the leader of the fearsome foursome.
If he's on the Brady Bunch.
Yes. And Deacon Jones will tell you that he is the all-time sack leader.
Probably only the second best player from his college. Mississippi Valley State.
Oh, sure.
Jerry Rice. Not a bad production from a little college down there in Mississippi. Mark in my former home state. In the 15th round, Willie Davis is the best 15th rounder of all time. The 16th round, interestingly, and all of these players in these later rounds have been Hall of Famers. The 16th round has produced no Hall of Famers ever. So I picked some guy named Andy Russell because his name sounded like it would be easy for me to pronounce.
Number 34. Steelers great. Yes.
So in the 17th round, the best 17th round draft pick of all time, we've already highlighted him in a previous episode. Go back and watch it. Bart Starr. 18th round, Chris Hamburger. Not Hamburger, Hamburger.
Number 55.
Another Hall of Famer in the 19th round, Andy Rubastelli. Number 20 we've mentioned previously, wide receiver Raymond Berry. Caught a lot of passes from Johnny Unitas in the day. Number 21 is one that you young kids will recognize. The best pick in the 21st round of the NFL draft, in my estimation, when I looked at who was available, was one John Madden. Now, he's famous as a player, as a coach, as an announcer, and as a video game guy. That's a pretty good life.
Or as a coach, announcer, and video guy.
Well, he's my best 21st round draft pick. 22nd round, Art Donovan. And nobody of merit till I get to the 27th round. Roosevelt Brown will be our Mr. Irrelevant as the last guy chosen. However, we're still not done because, as you know, Mark, when the draft ends, the action begins. All of the staff in every war room starts frantically calling agents of guys who were not drafted to try to sign the undrafted free agents that they like. And so we have a list of 3 guys who were not drafted into the NFL. And they're all Hall of Famers. Izzy's best available would include Warren Moon. And he carved a name for himself in the Canadian Football League before finally being given a chance. And John Randall, who used to wreak havoc against my second-round draft pick, Brett Favre, once upon a time. But I went off that list and chose Willie Wood as the best undrafted free agent ever signed to an NFL roster. And that is the history of the draft by round.
Willie Wood, I don't want to mess this up because I'm going to confuse possibly Herb Adderley and Willie Wood. I'm not confusing them, but in the first 2 Super Bowls, both of them had long interception returns, and one of them was for a touchdown, and I believe that was Willie Woods. But Herb Adderley also had a 55 or 60-yard return of an interception, but Willie Wood did, number 24, I believe, for the Green Bay Packers.
Yeah, number 24 is correct, Willie Wood, and 8-time Pro Bowler, 5-time All-Pro, 2-time Super Bowl champion, 5-time NFL champion, Hall of Famer, and Hall of Fame All-60s team as well, as an undrafted free agent. Out of USC, not a small school either. I mean, it's not like they found him, at Bethune-Cookman or something. I mean, USC.
Very cool. And when you mentioned the All-Decade team, I'm going to verify what I believe is confirmed in my head, and I will offer up this question, and then people can go out there and research it or just try to answer it without looking it up. And that's that there's only been one player in the history of the NFL who's been named to 2 All-Decade teams. So we will just serve that up and let people think about that.
So that's a little bait. That's a little come back next week and you'll learn this little bit of football history. I better come back too, because I don't know.
I'm going to verify that I know.
You rarely have to verify. I'm going to say that right now.
I'm going to do that just to make sure. I appreciate it. I'm currently looking at Bob Hayes' receiving statistics right now.
I want to say this. There's a little personal story here, and maybe in 9 years or so, when the NFL draft is held, you might see one Boaz Karlstrom drafted as the number 1 pick as a quarterback. I have 6 kids, Mark, you know that, and I made them all go outside and throw the football with the old man down through the years. Well, they're all old and almost all out of the house, but little Boaz is 13, and every single day he says, "Dad, you want to go throw the football?" There may have been a day 10 years ago when one of my kids would have said that. I'd be like, yeah, it's kind of cold, or yeah, whatever. But today, man, I don't care what I'm doing. I drop it and I go play that catch with my boy, because you know what? Those days are fleeting. And if you got somebody to throw the ball with, go do it.
I couldn't agree more. I get those moments with my...
He's got a cannon for an arm.
Does he? Okay. He
just flicks that ball and it goes. It's a little Dan Marino-esque.
I would love to see it sometime.
He's almost hurting my hands, Almost hurting my hands, and I told him, I said, "You're not hurting my hands yet, but I envision a day not too long down the road where you will be." So
yes, he'll have that John Elway, Brett Favre effect, hurting the receiver's hands or leaving crosses on their chest.
Not unlike Drew Brees.
Yeah, which speaks to his greatness as well. Receivers weren't dropping his passes because they were overthrown. Too much velocity.
Well, the convenient thing about throwing it hard is, the defensive back will hopefully drop it as well. Of course, that didn't really work for Brett Favre, did it?
Yeah, they held on to a few, about 250.
29 in the one year late in his career, I think there was a 29 interception year. He's still my best second round pick ever.
He had the great season with the Vikings when they came within a Brett Favre interception and stupid decision from the Super Bowl.
Yeah. And, I was cheering that interception. I'm sorry, I have to say. But look, since we're on Favre, we're on the draft, one last thing about that second round pick. The GM who took over the Green Bay Packers in 91 and brought them back to greatness, Ron Wolf, who himself is a Hall of Famer for what he had done. he finished up his career as an assistant GM, I believe that this is correct, for the Jets. And then once he was done with the draft, then he came over to Green Bay. Well, the number one guy on his draft board in 91 was Brett Favre, the top of his list. But the Jets that year didn't have a pick till the second round. So and I don't know why they didn't make a trade, but they didn't. And so he just kept hoping against hope that that Brett Favre would be there when they got the pick. And as luck would have it, the Atlanta Falcons were picking right ahead of them, the slot ahead of them in the second round, and took Brett Favre away from Ron Wolf. So in his dismay, Ron Wolf said, well, I need a quarterback. I guess I'll draft Browning Nagel. So Browning Nagel. So when he came over to Green Bay, he made it his, number two job. Number one job was hire a coach. Number two job was go get that guy who eluded him in the previous year's draft.
There you go. Good stuff.
Best second round pick of all time, Brett Favre.
Yes, absolutely, without a doubt.
All right, I'll stop rambling now. I will let our fans go. But folks, I hope you enjoyed this episode of Pro Football, the Pro Football History Channel. It's about the draft, so you really can't help but enjoy it.
He's Izzy, I'm Mark, and we'll be here next week. Certainly, you can send us your requests for topics, and we will be here to talk more history of the National Football League.